Welcome to the first ever episode of Soft Signal in the post Virat Kohli era. My name is Varun and I'm joined by Aditya.
And there's a lot to talk about indeed.
Sure is I tried to start it on a very somber note, but it is a somber episode for multiple reasons. Uh, we are going to start off talking about India's disastrous, not disaster, disappointing tour of South Africa, and then we will then move on to the topic of the hour, which is of course Virat Kohli's dramatic resignation or expected resignation, depending on who you talk to, from Test captaincy. But yeah, let's start with the Test series. Uh, India lost 2-1, in case anyone doesn't know, and which would have been a great result back in 2001, but not so much this year, right?
Yeah, it's so disappointing because India had no business losing the series, especially after they won the first match. Right? You can think that you can say that probably okay, if you lose the first match, then it's difficult to come back. But India won that match as well. And with this Indian team against that South African team, minus the likes of Nortje, minus the likes of Quinton de Kock, India had no business losing that series. So really disappointed by the outcome, and also disappointed by the fact that um, you know South Africa chased more than 200 runs in the fourth innings twice. Okay, if it happened once, you would expect them to learn from it, but somehow that didn't happen, and South Africa chased more than 200 again in the third Test match. So really disappointing. India had no business to lose that series.
Yeah, and the chases weren't even close. They won both by 7 wickets, which is pretty very comfortable chases in the end. So we'll start with pre-series. We thought it would be 2-1. I think we both said, or one of us said 2-0, one of us said 2-1. And after the first test, it seemed to be. I honestly thought 3-0 might be on the cards because we didn't dominate the test and win it handsomely, for example, but we won it by a sufficient margin, and it was very much the blueprint that we've used in winning those tests in Australia and England, right? Where we play, where in the first innings get some kind of a lead, and then yeah, can, batting is again okay in the second innings, and then the fourth innings we just steamroll the opposition. But yeah, after the first test, especially at Centurion, which we haven't won ever, it seemed really good. And then second test, I think did it start from Kohli is not playing, and then Rahul being the captain? Did that have any effect? You think?
Well, I just think, honestly, I don't think it was about the captaincy. I think it's about India's batting, which has become way too weak. And you cannot expect the bowlers to keep bailing them out. Right? In the early part of this millennium, it used to be the other way around, where the batting was strong and the bowling was weak, and you couldn't expect the batsmen to bail the bowlers out of the situation each time. The problem now is reversed. India's batting is way too weak. It's as simple as that. There are collapses happening in every innings. They start decently. To be honest, the openers kind of look solid, and then once they lose a wicket or two, it's a procession after that. It's as if every batsman comes out there with the intention of scoring as many runs as possible before they get out. They don't seem to know how to stick it out. They don't seem to sort of they don't exude any confidence either. Like, as a viewer, I just felt that each time the South African bowlers were running up to bowl, I felt like there could be a wicket each time. And that was not the case earlier. I mean, okay, our batting was brittle, but it was not this evident. I mean, over here it just felt like it's a matter of time before India's rolled out for 200. You know, and that's the problem. You can get rolled out for 200 once, twice, thrice, even with this bowling attack. They'll get you back into the game. But if you do that 5 innings out of 6 possible innings in this series, I think that's a recipe for disaster. So it's the batting really that let India down in a big way, and I think that's the reason for this loss.
Yeah, not even 5 out of 6. I only see 6 out of 6 because the first innings of the first test also we scored 320, but we were 280 for three. And
Yeah.
after there was the opening partnership, and then Rahul played his customary one great innings of the tour, and then we lost the last 7 wickets for 40, 50 runs or whatever. So yeah, the batting was, you can't win a series without a middle order. Also, for all of South Africa's inexperience, this was out of the Australia. Okay, maybe because when we played Australia last year, we didn't have this middle order, right? We had only Pujara and Rahane. But what I mean is that out of Australia, the South African bowling attack is much better than the English bowling attack that we faced in the summer. So that I think it took a really good bowling attack as well to finally expose this batting lineup for what it is. And yeah, it's just no batsman gave you confidence. Like maybe Kohli in the last test, but even then he kind of it was a tough pitch, but he kind of struggled and played well. But other than Kohli and then the Pant in the last innings, there was never any confidence that this team can. I remember when we got that 13-run lead in the last test, you messaged me saying, I hope we can bat them out of the game. And I said, no, they're going to get out under 200. I said some 180 or something. We just got about that because that's the expectation from the set. And honestly, if Pant had not got that 100, we would have probably been out for 120.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really unfortunate. I mean, there is no contribution from numbers three and fives. Okay,
Yeah.
number three at least is making some runs, not telling contributions, but at least a 20 or a 30 or by chance a 50. But what's number five doing? And numbers three, four, five are the engine room, as they call it, in Test match cricket. That is where the bulk of your runs should come from. Those are the guys who are usually your best batsmen. But that's not the case. That's not been the case for a long time now. Okay, number four is India's best batsman. Virat Kohli is India's best batsman. He's proven himself over a long period of time. And even while he's kind of going through this slump, you still feel that he will come good, right? You still feel that he's not going to get out that easily. But with Pujara and Rahane, you simply don't feel like that anymore. You just feel like, okay, it's just a matter of time before one of them edges the ball to the slip cordon or something, and that's the end of the story. Especially Rahane, and this has not been happening for a small period of time now. This has been happening for a long time. So honestly, I think the length of the rope has now ended. uh, I will be surprised if Pujara and Rahane start India's next Test match, albeit against Sri Lanka and India. But I will be surprised if they start the next Test match.
I will be pleasantly surprised if they don't start the test match. Note the word pleasantly there. We've been going on about this for.
For a long
Ajinkya
time.
Rahane might sue us for defamation. But but honestly, man, it's just annoying as a fan watching this team. Of course, you want the team to do well, but just seeing them do the same things over and over again is just frustrating. To
Yeah.
just to this, it's almost like you don't have to listen to us. We're just fans, but listen, like it's not like we don't even have people in the wings. Like it's not like you have this try out new people. They have so many people playing. You send Vihari to play the India A series in South Africa. He has 350s in 5 innings. He played the second test. He batted really well in the second innings, especially. And you just drop him. It's like it beggars belief, honestly. And
Yeah.
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, no, I was just going to build on that. It's absolutely right. I mean, if you remember at the start of the series when Rahane was sacked of the vice captaincy, we thought that that meant that he will not start the first Test match. Uh, and maybe he started the first Test match, and then we thought, okay, maybe he won't start the second. But in this series, he started all three Test matches,
Yeah, because
even after Vihari scored runs in the opportunity that he got. So, what kind of message are you sending Vihari? You're telling Vihari that look, whatever you do, it's not enough, right? You're telling Shreyas Iyer the same thing. that okay, you scored 100 against New Zealand in India, but that's not enough. We are still going to go with Pujara and Rahane. So it sort of sends the wrong signals to these guys who are performing in the opportunities that they get, and it's really unfortunate because really there is no room for Rahane and Pujara left in this team, and I really hope that they don't start the next Test match against Sri Lanka.
Yeah, let's talk about some positives. The positives is always that have been for Indian cricket for a while now. Is the bowling, like Bumrah is as usual was sensational. Shami as well. Siraj in the 1.5 tests he played. I detest his Ronaldo celebration, but other than that, he bowled really well. That celebration
Yeah.
is pretty cringe, but that's fine. And Shining Shardul was again did his job really well. 7 wickets in innings, I think, in the first innings of the second test, which was really great.
Yeah, Lord Shardul, as they call him. I mean, to be honest, I'm a big fan of Shardul Thakur. Right? I think that
We know. I think people who have watched
yeah,
our
exactly.
England episodes are aware.
Exactly. But I'm really a big fan of his because you get the feeling that he's always giving his best. He's in for the fight. He won't throw in the towel easily, and he does whatever he can do with his ability. And let's be honest, he's the kind of guy who'll not be your number one bowler in Test matches. He might do it in T20 and ODIs, but he won't be your number one bowler or your number one batsman in Test match cricket. But what he can do decently well is be the bowling all rounder who bats at number 8, and sort of gives you valuable runs, but also takes wickets thanks to his ability to swing the ball. So I think he was really good in this series. I think he showed that he can be persisted with, at least outside India, as the fourth seamer. And Bumrah, of course. What a bowler!
Yeah.
With that action, and that unusual run up, etc. Very few people would have given him a chance to succeed, especially the purists. But I think he's proven time and again that he's a class apart, and India is lucky to have him.
Yeah. Let's speak a bit about South Africa as well. I mean, unfortunately, it had to come against us, but it's good to see them back in a way. Like they've had some shocking years in Test cricket, especially, and also with Quinton de Kock retiring after the first Test. We thought there would be like a vacuum, but yeah, the players seem to have stepped up. And one player I want to like the bowling was outstanding, Rabada and Marco Jansen in particular, but Keegan Peterson, right? The KP they finally have after losing KP to England 2 decades ago. He looked really solid, really confident in the crease, and like I've heard he spent a lot of time with Callis, and he kind of reminds me of Amla. He could be the it's too early to say, but he could be the new Amla.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at players, right, it's not only about how many runs they score, and it's not usually people, the usually the thinking is that okay, if he scores 100, he must be a good player. But that's not always the case. I mean, sometimes even if somebody scores a 15 or a 20, just by the way they score and just by looking at how comfortable they appear in that short innings, you can tell that that this player is really good. And I think that is the case with Keegan Peterson. In the first Test match, he didn't score a lot of runs. I think he had a 20 or a 30 or I don't remember, but he didn't score a lot of runs. But in that brief stay at the crease, he really looked comfortable. Like he never looked rushed. He never looked out of sorts. He never looked uncomfortable. And those are the kind of things uh, that distinguish a really good player from the others. And I think that is what Keegan Peterson is. He's a really good player. So he's got his basics right. He's got the base that he's got a solid base. I think now it's just a matter of using that and getting the big scores. But He's somebody that can be a key part of South Africa's middle order as they look to rebuild for the future.
Yeah, and good. We need more strong sides in Test cricket because it was becoming pretty one dimension with just India, Australia, England, to an extent Pakistan, New Zealand. But now good to see South Africa back as well. So let's move on to the topic of the hour, which is now Virat Kohli. Before the T20 World Cup, resigned as the T20 captain. During the IPL, he resigned as the RCB captain. After in between the New Zealand, I don't remember when it was. Sometime before the South Africa tour, he was sacked, replaced as the ODI captain, and now he's resigned as a Test captain. So we have officially new captains in all three formats. So we'll get to who should be the captain a bit later. But what's your initial reaction to this?
Uh, yeah, so I think there are two parts to this story. I think firstly, the loss in South Africa has the loss of the series in South Africa has played a significant part in him taking this decision. I feel that if India had won that series, he would not have stepped down. And the second thing is that he's clearly ruffled some feathers in the BCCI. You cannot, you again, you got to be diplomatic, right, about these things. It's not a street fight. You have to be diplomatic. If Saurav Ganguly, the BCCI president, says something in the press, you cannot have a press conference a few days later and contradict everything. You simply cannot. It's not a street fight. You need to be diplomatic. Also, what has not worked in Kohli's favor is the fact that he's lost form. It's been 2 years since he scored 100, for example, and that's a big deal for a player like him. The expectations are obviously a lot higher. He's not reached those levels of expectation. So obviously, then when you ruffle the feathers of the BCCI, when you're not performing that well, it works against you. So I think those are the two things that have played against him. Honestly, I won't even be surprised that after the series lost, somebody in the BCCI probably told him, "Look, either you resign now or we sack you. So choose whichever one looks better for you." And obviously, it's better if he resigns as opposed to being sacked. So this is speculation, of course. I don't know if this actually happened, but the fact of the matter is that he's ruffled feathers in BCCI. India has lost the series in South Africa. His form is not good. This was going to happen at some stage.
Yeah, you gotta have. I saw an interesting take on it on Twitter actually from some fellow fan that who said that he had complete power over Indian cricket from like 2015 to 2018, 19 because and he did a lot of things like he got the coach he wanted. Kumble was sacked. Ravi Shastri was got back. He had complete power over his selections, and he showed his power then because he was performing well, and no one could really touch him. And now that the tables have turned suddenly in the past couple of years because his form has gone down. The team is still performing really well, but his form has gone down, and the board has become powerful again with Jay Shah and Saurav Ganguly. So now it's a cycle of power, and he's now at the wrong end of it. I have a feeling again. I agree with your take that he was kind of told that you are going to be you might be sacked, so you might as well resign gracefully. But I feel that he was also kind of, in my mind at least, I feel that he's kind of had enough of the scrutiny and the social media pressure. Probably wants to just concentrate on his own form, and he had probably made up his mind to resign after the South Africa series anyway, or he was told he had to resign, and then yeah, winning would have made it a great note to resign on. But I think he would have resigned irrespective. That's just my take. Again, we don't know what's happened until Boria Majumdar comes out with the truth. But till then, the speculation is that yeah, I mean it's 7 years as a captain. He took over after the Boxing Day Test in 2014 in Australia, and now 2022. So 7 years as a captain is a long time anyway. Like you have captains like Graham Smith and who have captained for 10, 12 years. But other than that, can't think of any, like even Ponting was captain for 7 years. Yeah, so it's okay. I think Indian cricket will still survive. It's the end of an era for sure. Well, how would you judge his captaincy era? So I have a couple of thoughts on it, but I'd like to hear yours first.
Yeah, so I think there's no doubt about the fact that he made India a stronger side outside India. I don't think there was ever a problem with India winning in India. I think that is the base. That's going to happen always. But I think Kohli, with his attitude and with his affinity towards fast bowlers, especially, sort of transformed the side in a way that they were always going to be competing equally well outside India, and that they always had a chance to beat opposition outside India. And that is, I think, that will be the legacy of his captaincy, because it's a big deal. I mean, it's a big deal being able to go to Australia and England, and South Africa and New Zealand, and go there with a chance to win. Okay, fine. We beat Australia. Let's be honest. We probably would have beaten England in that last Test match. We had the momentum. In the series before that against England, we played better than what the scoreline suggested, and also we beat Australia in the series before. So India was strong traveling. Okay, we didn't beat New Zealand, but in fact we got hammered by New Zealand in New Zealand. But at least we went there with a chance to win, which you could not talk about the team under Dhoni even, although they did win a series in New Zealand. But the team under Dhoni was good for a year or two, and that's just because everybody was at the peak of their power. But even Dhoni was not able to make this team very potent outside India, and that's what Kohli did. Again, we've not won in South Africa, but let's face it, we were favorites to win this series. You would never have said that about previous Indian teams before the series. You would never have given them a chance to win. So I think, and yeah, just to put it in fair measure, we did beat West Indies in West Indies as well. So we won away Test matches. We won in Sri Lanka as well. So back in 2015, when Sri Lanka was a good team. I'm not talking about the series we won after that.
Yeah.
But I think his legacy will go down as somebody who made India a strong overseas unit, um, and I think our bowlers benefited from it. The pool of fast bowlers that we have is also thanks to his affinity to fast bowlers, and finally uh, the fitness element in Indian cricket is all down to him. I genuinely feel it's all down to him. Today, Indian players don't break down in the middle of a series. Uh, if the series is a five-test match series or a four-test match series, you don't have India's lead bowler breaking down after the first one. So these kind of things are. So this is something again that he brought to Indian cricket, and I think that would also be part of his legacy.
Yeah, good, really good points. I think he definitely made the team became fighters for sure. They are now the bullies or whatever of world cricket, but they do start most tests as favorites. They were always favorites at home. I think we've lost only a handful of series in the past 30 years at home. But yeah, away from home, the results aren't quite I mean, if I was just thinking about it today because I was comparing eras, the results versus Dhoni's time as captain, for example. Dhoni won a series in New Zealand. He drew a series against South Africa, which was a much stronger South African team in 2010. But yeah, had those disastrous tours of England, Australia, New Zealand later. Kohli lost one series in New Zealand, lost both series in South Africa, lost one out of two in England. Uh, and the one they won in Australia last year was mostly Rahane. But it's the attitude that he changed. The fast bowling for sure. Never would we have thought that, like when he took over, Dhoni was playing Mohit Sharma and Karan Sharma and all these people in tests. Uh, Stuart Binney played that test series against England. So like to develop this talent pool to focus on fast bowling, give that team the confidence. Definitely, it's going to hold India in good stead. In a way, it's almost like how Ganguly took over a team, um, gave them that confidence, set the base, which Dhoni was then able to capitalize on in those 2 3 years, especially in white ball cricket. Same way Kohli has now kind of set a base, and now we'll see who takes over and what legacy they carry forward, which is a good segue into that topic actually. So a few options. I'll go through them one by one. Um, I think the favorite is Rohit Sharma because he's already the Test vice captain and he's the captain in the other two formats. The one con against the one negative against him is actually there are two negatives in my book. That first of all, he's pretty old. He's already 34, he'll be 35 this year, so probably a couple of years of Test cricket left in him. And the second one, he's not his fitness. Like he's missing every other tour. Missed this tour as well. Not sure if you can have a player who's like missing that much Test cricket to be captain. The second option is actually there are yeah the second option is KL Rahul, where because I think he's been talked about as the future captain, but he might have to be fast tracked into this role. He's already the vice captain of the. He was the vice captain. He led India in the second test as well. So that's one option. Sorry, just two more. Third one is Ashwin. People have talked about him as like the brains of the team and all of that, and he is a pretty smart guy. But again, he's old. He doesn't not guaranteed in overseas tests at all, especially after this performance in South Africa. The fourth option, who I think honestly would not be a bad, it's pretty left field. But actually, I think Rishabh Pant might not be uh, the worst choice because he's young. He's 24, so he's not like he's a 20-year-old kid. He's played 3 years of Test cricket, which is the same Kohli had played before he was made Test captain. And if there's anyone who's kind of permanent in this team, it is him because he's the. I think now they won't play Saha or anyone else. Like Pant is definitely the keeper, and he can even play as a batsman. So might not be the worst guy. Like groom him. There are still these seniors in the squad who can help him. And yeah, let's see how that shakes out.
Yeah, it's a fair point you mentioned about Rishabh Pant. Um, the only problem is I don't see that happening because of the announcements that they've already made. Meaning Rohit Sharma is already the vice captain and of India's Test team, and then in his absence, because he didn't play, he was injured in that series. KL Rahul led the team in the second Test match. So if you look at the pecking order, there's Rohit Sharma, KL Rahul, and then potentially Rishabh Pant, because he has been talked about, being groomed into the leadership role. So I think your points are valid about Rohit Sharma. He's doesn't have too many years of Test cricket of cricket in general left ahead of him. He's not the fittest of guys in the circuit, but I think just given the announcements that are made already, he will be India's next Test captain. Now, whether that's the right or wrong choice is probably the discussion that we want to have. From a long term perspective, it's not. Let's put it simply, it's not because he's too old for it. He'll be 35 this year. Uh, the thing, however, that will work in his favor though is that uh, let's look at the whole Indian team now, right? Virat Kohli obviously will continue, but as a player, but he's not going to be captain again. Pujara and Rahane are probably not going to make the next Test match. So in terms of seniority, Rohit Sharma again, even though he's not okay, he's established himself as India's opener. He's probably done just enough to do it. I wouldn't say that he like 2 years ago he was not a mainstay, but he's probably done just enough to establish himself. So even in terms of that pecking order, he's probably the most senior batsman in the team. So what will probably happen is that he will be India's Test captain for the next 2 or 3 years, but it'll then come down to a straight clash off between KL Rahul and Rishabh Pant. So I think Rishabh Pant or KL Rahul will eventually take over the captaincy from Rohit Sharma in the next 3 years or so, depending on who performs better. But I'd like to throw out one other point, one other possibility. If both of them don't perform better, there is Shreyas Iyer in the mix. And of course, it's too early to say, but I think we've had this discussion before. I strongly feel that Shreyas Iyer should be India's long-term captain after Rohit Sharma. Um, and in my opinion, he should be ahead of Rishabh Pant in the pecking order. And I think it should be either him or KL Rahul. Um, of course, all of this depends on performance. But the thing is, with Pujara and Rahane probably, not going to make it to the next Test match, I think this is the opportunity that Shreyas Iyer needs to get into the Test squad, hopefully perform well, uh, cement a position in the Test squad, and then let's see in 2 or 3 years. But I think he's got a real chance to be India's captain across formats, not just in Test match cricket, but across formats. Because I think he's probably well established already as an ODI and T20 player for India.
Yeah, interesting. I don't if Rohit, I'll believe it when it's announced. I don't know if they'll make him honestly because I know they made him vice captain. I think that was just in the only thing they might want to do is have one all format captain, so they might make him captain, yes. But his fitness is a big thing. Like, he wasn't even established in the team. And if they make Rahul captain, Rahul was also till the England tour, he wasn't even going to play in the 11. So it was kind of difficult. It's Kohli's kind of resigned at the if he had waited a couple more years till after this test cycle, 23 next year, that would have been better maybe because that would have then given time. Pujara and Rahane would have been dropped anyway. They could have had Iyer and a couple of others play and then see who would take over the team after that cycle. So yeah, it's a bit dicey time. This 1-2 year period might be a bit difficult for Indian cricket in red ball cricket at least.
Yeah, you're right. It could be a little dicey. The thing is, however, we still have a very good bowling attack. So I think all conditions given, India will still be able to take 20 wickets anywhere in the world, which means that it's the batting that's an issue, and they need to find the right batsman in the middle order for them to put up enough runs on the board. I think that is the key. Uh, I think all the other bases are covered really. And when we talk about the middle order, I think I think this is probably the end of the rope or the end of the road for Pujara and Rahane. Uh, and I'll be surprised if they make it to the Test squad, or the Test team at least, the starting 11 at least against Sri Lanka.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll see what happens. The coming up, there's a ODI series now against South Africa. If anyone's interested in watching, first one is on Wednesday, I think, and then we go back home and play ODI. The next test at least against Sri Lanka at home, which should be an easy win for us, but we'll see. And then by the time we'll know who the next test captain is as well. So thank you for watching, and yeah, we'll see you soon.
Yeah, thanks for watching and see you soon.